My name is Jeff McGinness from Iowa City, Iowa, and I was the 9th four-time state champion. I started wrestling very early on. My dad was very close to the University of Iowa wrestling program. He was one of the co-founders of the Hawkeye Air Wrestling fan club. And I literally grew up on the bench. I have a picture when I was 5 when I broke my left arm. It was the same time that Randy Lewis blew his left elbow out against wrestling Gibbons. And I'm sitting on the bench, sitting right by Randy Lewis. I have my arm in a cast and he has his arm in a cast. So I've been around it all my life. I'm still involved in wrestling sometimes, and you see that there's some very intense families, some laid-back families. My parents erred on the side of being more laid back. They gave me the opportunities to be involved in wrestling, didn't push me towards it too much. But having grown up around it, I naturally, found my path in wrestling. I'm not a big person, I'm not incredibly fast, so I wasn't going to play baseball or football, and for short guys that have good balance, wrestling seems to be a good fit. It was a situation where my dad would always ask me, there's a wrestling tournament this weekend, do you want to go? And inevitably my answer was more times than not, yes. Youth wrestling for me is a much different experience than when I was a wrestler than as a parent. When I was a kid, it was going to hang out with my friends from different parts of the state that also happened to wrestle. I grew up in the Iowa wrestling room. I went to the club practices there that they started. I learned from Barry Davis, the Zaleskis, all the way up until I was in high school. So I had some pretty good teachers, growing up in Iowa City, Iowa. But every weekend it wasn't the intensity that I see sometimes now with some of the parents. It was, I had great friends, for example, the Moscow Wrestling Club, which was around Wilton. Justin and Corey Stanley, who are still really good friends of mine. Kevin Brisker, somebody I grew up with, Cameron from Pleasant Valley, people from all over the state. So it was, hey, reconnecting with them. You'd wrestle 3-4 matches at the actual tournament, but more times than not, you probably wrestled 30-40 matches just screwing around, both before, during, and after the event. I'd been to the barn, Vets Auditorium, which we no longer wrestle in. I'd been there before to watch when I was in 7th and 8th grade. My parents said, you're going to be wrestling in high school, you should probably be exposed to this. Went and watched, and it was an amazing experience. My freshman year, it was almost again like being a kid. You're back around wrestling, everybody you grew up with from all these other cities and towns and counties across the state of Iowa. But it's mass. It's just, you really can't put it into words when you walk in there and there's that many people cheering for you, against you, for somebody else, or for a team. Whole towns pretty much close up shop in Iowa. Some of the smaller towns close up shop, and everybody is at the state tournament. And that's just the way it's always been. It's hard to pick one thing that motivated me to stick with it. It was and it changed throughout my career. When I was a young wrestler, it was hanging out with my friends. I had a lot of, friends from different cities and different towns, and it was, I get to go wrestle and hang out with them for this weekend. When I got to high school, it was a lot of the same. I had some really good friends on my team. My junior year, Louis Pelsang, one of my best friends, and still one of my best friends. The motivation is always, challenging yourself, seeing how you stack up to the other people and the other person. Part of it is you operate a little bit on fear. People try to maintain this face and say, I'm not scared, and I'm not nervous. And perhaps there are some people that don't have that. Perhaps there are some of those people that trick you and say, I'm not nervous, I'm anxious. And I'm one of those people that say, when I get the nervous energy flowing, it's not because I'm nervous to wrestle, it's because I'm anxious to wrestle, and sort of playing on your emotions. But it is a lot of that. It is, seeing where you are. There's nobody else there to help you. It's just you and one other person. My name is Jeff McGinness. I was the 9th four-time state wrestling champion.